The Ocoee Massacre, which occurred on November 2, 1920 in Ocoee, Florida, stands as one of the most brutal instances of racial violence in American history. This tragic event unfolded on the day of the U.S. presidential election. This day should have been marked by Democratic participation, but instead became a bloodbath driven by deep-seated racial animosity. Ocoee, located in Orange County near Orlando, was a small but growing town with a population of 255 African Americans and 560 white residents, according to the 1920 census. The black community in Ocoee was relatively prosperous, with many owning land and homes, and they were actively involved in the local economy. However, this prosperity did not shield them from the pervasive racism of the era. The violence on that fateful day was ignited by African American citizens attempting to exercise their right to vote. The 1920 election was the first in which women could vote, and there was a significant push among African Americans to register and cast their ballots. Moses Norman, a successful black farmer, and Julie Perry, a prominent community leader, were among those who sought to vote. However, their attempts were met with fierce resistance from white poll workers who refused to allow them to vote. The situation quickly escalated when Norman, undetermined by the intimidation, sought legal recourses and returned to the polls with a lawyer. This act of defiance angered the local white population, who formed a mob and sought to capture and punish Norman. Unable to find him, the mob turned its wrath on Perry and the African American community at large. The violence that ensued was horrific. The white mob, numbering in the hundreds, set fire to homes and churches in the black neighborhoods of northern Ocoee. Those who attempted to flee were shot or lynched. Julie Perry was captured, brutally beaten, and later hanged from a telephone pole near the Orange County Courthouse in Orlando. The terror did not end with Perry's lynching. The mob continued to rampage through the black community, killing an unknown number of residents. Estimates range from a few dozen to over 60, and driving the survivors out of town. The aftermath of the Ocoee Massacre was equally devastating. The black community in Ocoee was effectively erased. By the 1930 census, the town's population had drastically shifted, showing 1,180 whites, 11 Native Americans, and only 2 African Americans. The African American residents who survived the massacre were forced to abandon their homes, land, and livelihoods, many fleeing for their lives. The properties they left behind were seized by white residents, further entrenching the racial and economic disparities in the region. The massacre also had a chilling effect on African American political participation in Florida and beyond. The violence served as a stark warning to black citizens who dared to exercise their right to vote, contributing to the widespread disenfranchisement of African Americans in the South during the Jim Crow era. The Ocoee Massacre remained a largely forgotten chapter in American history for many decades, overshadowed by their instances of racial violence, such as the Tulsa Race Massacre of 1921. However, in recent years, there has been a renewed effort to acknowledge and reckon with this dark period. In 2020, on the 100th anniversary of the massacre, the state of Florida officially recognized the event, and the efforts to memorialize the victims and educate the public about the massacre continue to gain momentum. The Ocoee Massacre is a stark reminder of the violent lengths to which white supremacists would go to maintain racial dominance in the early 20th century. It underscores the persistent struggles for civil rights and justice faced by African Americans, struggle that continue to resonate in contemporary America. For more information, please visit my website at www.ontheshoulders1.com. There, you can learn more about my OTSOG book series. You can also support me on Patreon at patreon.com/OTSOG. You can also hit the super like button under this video. I love you all, and make sure you catch the next video coming up.